Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, you remind me of my grandfather, Wochikereme. If I were to contextualize why my grandfather was called Wochikereme, Wochikereme is a Venda version of an Afrikaans word, schelm. For those of you who understand the word schelm, he was a serious man. Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, my former chancellor when I was at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Yvonne Chaka. In 1985, I attended my first festival of music. I remember I went to Twando Stadium at 9 o'clock, and Dr. Yvonne Chaka only performed at 6 o'clock. But I think my patience was fully rewarded. Deputy Minister Mapulane from the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies, and Ms. Faith Mangope, you continue to inspire us with conversations. And yesterday, I absolutely enjoyed being on your show. And leaders of the university, Tshwane University of Technology, and distinguished guests, including my family members who are here. Before I begin my lecture this evening, I thought it will be an intriguing exercise to see how artificial intelligence would answer the question posed to me this evening. And it is a very difficult question. AI and universities, friends or foes? Mr. Mapulane, this is what we call dialectics. But I went to ChatGPT to help me answer this question. And this is what ChatGPT said, and I quote, "The relationship between AI and universities can be seen as more of a friendship than a rivalry. While there may be some concerns or tensions at times, overall, AI and universities have a symbiotic relationship with many mutual benefits," close quote. If I were to state that statement, would you be able to tell whether it was said by a human being or a machine? The father of artificial intelligence, Alan Turing, when he wrote the first paper in artificial intelligence in 1950, came up with something called the Turing test. The Turing test basically said that if you interact with a machine and you do not know whether it is a machine or a human being, then that machine is truly intelligent. And for many, many years, we never thought we were going to build machines that will be able to meet that standard of Alan Turing. You would agree with me that today we have built machines that are able to deceive us and confuse us and render us not knowing whether information was generated by a machine or by a human being. 20 years ago, my high school classmate, Alwani Zamaburana, called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he says, "Tshilidzi, do you think you can build an AI system that will be able to predict the lottery number. That is obviously very entrepreneurial, you know. Well, the answer is actually quite simple. You cannot build an AI system that is able to do that because it is basically a random process, unless it is a biased machine. Having worked at the intersection of education and AI over the last few decades, I think ChatGPT did not completely get the context. I think ChatGPT answered correctly, but a human being might have added a little bit of poetry, as we saw Professor Maluleke introducing me. Of course, AI is here. AI is here because the world has changed. When I entered a PhD program at Cambridge, and by the way, I was at Cambridge with Dr. Oboko, and I was doing AI. I don't know whether Dr. Oboko, you understood what I was studying. I think you thought I was a little bit mad. Most of the algorithms there, and Ben van Wyk can actually testify, that we use today were already in place. The perceptron that was discovered maybe in the 40s, 50s, was already perfected and in the 80s. Hinton had already written his seminal paper on backpropagation. And neural networks, we call it deep learning now, was already in place. So what has changed? Two things have changed. The first one is that we have more data today than ever before. And the second one is that we have more computation than ever before. When I finished undergraduate degree, I think the computer that we were using was 486. You could not run more than one program at the same time. If you were running Word Perfect, that is what we used to call MS Word then, you know. And you wanted to run Lotus 1, 2, 3, that's what we call Excel today. You would have to close one program in order to open another. And as when I entered a PhD program, that was during the era of Pentium 1. We were celebrating because we could run two programs at the same time. Today, the world has changed. The world has changed because AI is all around us. But the crucial question that has been asked is whether these AI systems that are all around us are our friend or our enemies. Professor Maluleke, it need not be a binary problem. I think you could have added the third state, if I were to use an engineering word, which is both. And I'm going to illustrate this as we move along. But if we're to contextualize AI within the context of higher education, universities, I think the positive impacts, of course even the negative impacts that this technology brings is actually quite profound. In 2017, my colleague, Professor Bo Xin, who was my PhD student originally from China, and I outlined the implications of the fourth industrial revolution, including AI, on higher education in a research paper. At that time we wrote, and I will quote, though the business of higher education remains unchanged since the times of Aristotle, today students still assemble at a scheduled time and venue to listen to the wisdom of scholars. That was in 2017. Given the fourth industrial revolution, a new form of a university is emerging that does teaching, research, and service in different manner. The university is interdisciplinary, has virtual classrooms and laboratories, virtual libraries, and virtual teachers. It does, however, not degrade educational experience, but augments it, close quote. Indeed, it has been argued by some camps that AI cannot be seen as augmented intelligence. It is so augmented in us physically that I am quite sure that if I were to take a survey here of how many of you reach out to your phones when you wake up before you even reach out to your loved ones. Because you and that phone has become one. You have married one another. You have become a system, a man or woman machine system. So, for those who question AI's place at university, I often go back to the time of COVID. In South Africa, during the COVID time, we deployed AI in multitude of ways. Universities harnessed the power of learning management systems and deployed a variety of technologies through programs such as Blackboard, which had deep data analytics, which enabled emergency remote teaching and learning to continue in the pandemic, with closer attention paid to the progress of individual students. Institutions were able to identify at-risk students and implement targeted interventions to improve retention rates and academic success. This afternoon, I had a conversation with Dr. Mlambo about this difficult issue that many of our vice-chancellors actually do not want to tackle, the issue of student dropout. The people who come to university and never actually complete. What role can AI play for us to be able to deal with at-risk students, improve retention rates, but ultimately improve graduation rates? Of course, during the COVID time, through these technologies, the learning became personalized, and they were developed based on individual student needs and preferences. At University of Johannesburg, we were able to even monitor class attendance and how much time students are actually spending engaging the learning material that were on this platform. We're able to analyze the preferences of students. And of course, the advanced versions of these technologies aided by face recognition technology, would be able to measure whether the students who are sitting in front of a computer are actually listening or they are dreaming about a holiday at the Victoria Falls. And of course, these systems can recommend customized learning materials, provide adaptive tutoring that actually looks at the specific needs of students, and suggest personalized study plans. So resource allocations were also optimized through data-driven insights. These were good. Technology was our friend. But we know the problems. Data. As the University of Johannesburg at that time, we were paying almost, I think it was 15 million rand every month on data to send to all the 50,000 students who were studying remotely. And these were not proper data. These were mainly night owls. You see, I come from Limpopo. Whenever you talk about owls, you are normally, I'm not going to continue, but you know what I mean. And it was not just about data. It was also about devices. You will remember when we were moving around trying to send people the devices. And the question that I often analyze is, wouldn't it have been nice if we could use the procurement of these devices as a catalyst, a catalytic instrument for industrialization and entering into the electronic age? And this is the type of thinking that we should always reflect on as we move forward. So, going back to the issue of data, this is what is called the digital divide. The digital divide is actually metamorphosizing into a data divide. And the data divide is actually mutating into inclusion and exclusion. When I was still a vice chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, I visited a country. I almost mentioned the name of a country. Oh, thank God. Because the last time I mentioned the name of the country, the ambassador came and camped into my office. And I was not even a diplomat then, you know. So it was me, Wongani Ngulunga, Oscar van Heersden, and Peter Vale. When you arrive at this country, you take your passport and put it on a machine. And then the machine looks at the picture on your passport and it looks at your face and basically validates that the person that is on the passport is the person I am seeing now. Once it does that, the gate opens. Masango avulile. And as a vice chancellor, I gave a specific instruction that I should be the first one to pass through, you know. Big mistake. So as I put my passport, high corner. It could not verify. Comes Peter Vale. It opens so fast. Then comes Bongani Nulunga. Icon. Then came Oscar van Heusden. Yeah, it opened fast. These systems are discriminating against people of African descent. Well, the South African tradition is to organize a march. I don't know how we can organize a march to a deep learning neural network. Ben van Wyk, you can assist me on that one, The reason for that is because the data that was used to train was not complete. It was not complete because the world is divided into data-rich and data-poor countries. And it did not work because there was not much data that was gathered from Mahlabatini, where Bongani comes from, or Dutuni, where I come from. Then, of course, engineers say, no. We can synthesize data. Synthetic data is actually the solution that people are actually talking about. That wherever we do not measure, if we don't go to Mahlabatini, at least we can get Bongani's picture, and from it we generate 1 million more. Of course, for those of you who understand statistics, you have a sampling problem. And of course, these systems go into more than face recognition. They go into medicine, medical diagnosis, and so on and so forth. As the United Nations, we are very worried about the issue of a digital divide. And as a result, going to the Summit of the Future, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, now I can speak the language. And we are going to go there with the global digital compact, which will address some of the issues that needs to be addressed when it comes to issues of access, so that we can make AI our friend, not our foe. And of course, it is more than just data. It's about access to certain types of IPs that we require. So we are here, and generative AI is here. Now, there are a number of issues that we need to reflect upon when it comes to generative AI. It obviously has the capacity to generate new content, such as images, text, or music, based on the patterns and data it has been trained on. But some of the contents are bad, while some of them are good. I'll give you an example. It can be able to create an image of a person. Now, if that person is a pious priest of a church, and then you can be able to create him smoking some drugs, fake image, you will agree with me that is not good. That fake image is bad because it is intended to undermine another human being. I went to a medical school, I visited a medical school, and they were telling me that we actually love these fake images. I said, what do you mean? He says, when we used to teach anatomy, we will get these models that will have to be photographed, because the photographs are not necessarily nice photographs from human dignity perspective. We will cover their faces. Now, with fake images like that are realistic, There is no need to cover anybody's image because that person actually has never existed. It's a fake image. Now, these generative AI are now able to write essays. The question that I would like to ask is that given that many of the things that we use to teach people to be able to do, these machines are able to do, what is the role of a university? Professor Maluleke, given these very important issues that I have just outlined, what is your value proposition? Of course, the value proposition is there. It means we need to move up into a much more creative spaces. We need to treat these technologies just like we treat a calculator. There was a time before the Japanese company called Casio brought calculators to our villages. When I was not yet in high school, people were using 3-figure tables. Those who are old enough will know what I'm talking about. You know. And many people there were even protests of people in the United States saying that calculators must be banned because they are making people intellectually lazy. You know, the slide rule and the 3-figure tables or 4-figure tables are good enough. Of course, we know calculators allowed us to teach much more complicated things, and they have been good for us. I think this is what we need to do. But of course, we are teaching today when these technologies are not yet properly regulated. According to a survey conducted by the US, in the US by the best colleges, it found that 56% of students admitted to using AI for assignments. And the answer that was given was to say, no, we are going to do a check to see whether you use ChatGPT or not. Then the engineer says, no, we are going to create another system. There's some other system called Quillbot. You put a paragraph and you decide whether you want to make it formal or you want to make it academic, or you want to make it simple, or you want to shorten it, or you want to expand it, and you just press a button, it does exactly that. Now, what is the role of a university in a context like that? So I went to ChatGPT and I said, mirror, mirror on the wall. Professor Maluleke, I'm not about to sing. Who is Tshilidzi Marwala? And then it started writing a story. And I could pick up that certain things were not correct. It says, I studied at the University of the Witwatersrand. I worked at the University of Witwatersrand. It says that I studied at the University of Johannesburg. I worked at the University of Johannesburg. And by the way, it is being smart. It can detect that I'm associated with University of Johannesburg and University of the Witwatersrand. And statistically, the university that you are associated with on the internet is actually the university where you studied, not the university where you work. Because there's simply too few people who work at universities. That is Statistics 101. Go and learn. So, now, I started reflecting. This is simple information. Imagine if you are asking it about a medical condition. That will require a doctor to verify whether these facts are correct. I think as these technologies come into fruition, the ability to verify becomes very important, because these technologies can lie with a straight face. They can lie with a straight face. Because even though they distill everything on the internet through their filter and generate as much text as possible and dump it to the reader, our flawed and beautiful minds, by contrast, can be able to, if it is trained well, can be able to discern that actually he only worked at University of Johannesburg, not studied there. Currently, this is true. Currently, the only form of verification is actually Wikipedia. If you are not on Wikipedia, good luck. Your mirror on the wall will probably always bring information that is not correct. So there are many other examples where AI is useful. Issues of virtual labs. I'm an engineer. One of the most difficult things about training engineers is that it is expensive. With virtual labs, we can simulate real-world experiences, experiments, and practical exercises, allowing students to gain hands-on experience remotely. And these labs can augment learning experience and provide accessible, flexible, and safe and cost-effective opportunities for students to engage hands-on experimentation and practical experiences. Going forward, what is to be done? I think firstly, we need to design an AI system so that it is able to maximize the good things that come out of this technology, making it our friend, and minimize the bad things that come out of this technology, it being a foe. And how do we do that? I think the first thing that we need to do is to establish the values that should define AI. What are some of these values that define AI? I think firstly, it must be accurate. And quite frankly, we have not discovered a technology of measuring the accuracy of an essay. Secondly, AI must be accessible. And access means every student who passes through your educational institution must actually have knowledge of AI. When I was a vice-chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, I introduced the compulsory AI course for all the students. It was a literacy course. And this is done so that AI access to it, which has become a human rights issue, is embedded on graduates. I think another value that we really have to take seriously, and this is a difficult one: transparency. AI is able to generate information. How it generates is actually a mystery, especially if you are using complicated multi-layer perceptrons with many, many inputs, because there is a cross-coupling that you cannot be able to eliminate. I think this AI must be non-discriminatory. In other words, Wongani and Tshilidzi, when they visit that country, must not be prevented because they have African faces. And of course, when we talk about all these values, we realize very, very quickly that engineers will not be able to do this on their own. We require people who have studied ethics. We actually require multidisciplinary education. And the value of multidisciplinary education cannot be emphasized enough. I have a theory. Because for a long time, I always wondered why Germany does not have their own Facebook or their own Twitter, and so on and so forth. And I came to the conclusion that the reason is because their educational experience is not multidisciplinary. If you contrast that with what is happening in Silicon Valley, American education system actually is absolutely very multidisciplinary. When I was a mechanical engineering student in Ohio, I actually took I was required to take 12 human and social sciences. I took 3 acting classes. So if I go for audition in 7 Dilan, I'm in. I even participated in a play called My Children, My Africa, as Tamim Bikwana. For those of you who have read it. I took psychology classes. I was very, very excited. I think I was on that stand where they were talking about the use of reinforcement learning. There, you should go and find out. It's an algorithm. But I did not learn about reinforcement learning from an engineering class. I actually learned it from a psychology class. It starts with Pavlov and his dogs, and the theory of conditioning, and it ends with the theory of reinforcement learning. And I think taking that concept from engineering and computer science, from psychology to engineering and computer science, is actually detail. It's not much innovation, it's detail, because the algorithm is there in the natural world. The second thing that I think we need to do is to change human behavior. We need to change human behavior of people who are designing these algorithms. We need to change human behavior of people who are using these algorithms. Because some people are using these algorithms for sinister reasons. And that is not good. Which means our curriculum must actually address that issue. Responsible use of technology, not just AI, responsible use of AI, or of technologies. And some of these behaviors graduate into national levels and manifest themselves in the weaponization of technologies, ending us with what you were talking when you were talking about Mr. Shaw, man with hands dripping in blood, aided by technology. Very important. I think at another level, we need to design mechanisms. One of my former PhD students here, Dr. Maumeda, did a master's in Japan on mechanism design. We need to have incentives that incentivize people to do the right things. And they do the right things beginning in the classroom, all the way to the rest of the world. But at the same time, we need to design these incentives so that people cannot do bad things. Then we need to create structures. How do we regulate this technology? Some of the regulations will have to happen at the national level. Some of them will have to happen at the continental level. The AU is actually dealing with the issue of regulation of AI. The EU is dealing with the issue of regulation of AI. And some of these should happen at the international level. The United Nations has a high-level advisory board on AI that will deal with the ethics of AI. So these are important things. And then on top of that, we need to develop standards. And the standards of AI are very, very complicated. Because accuracy in one area, which is very good, is bad in another area. For example, an accuracy of 95% in a medical diagnostic system is good, because a human doctor cannot achieve those levels of accuracy. But the same accuracy requirement for an aircraft is bad. It means that of the 100 flights that are going to happen, roughly 5 are going to come down. So it has to be done also at specific industries, have to have their own standards. Some of them will be done at national, regional, and international. Standardization is quite important. And ultimately, we need to create laws to govern this. And, dear Mapulane, it means our lawmakers must become technologically literate. Technological literacy, illiteracy in our lawmakers is a very dangerous attribute. It means universities must create spaces to be able to inform and educate our lawmakers about the developments that are happening around AI, which are happening as we speak. I know I've been speaking for a long time, but now I am coming to an end. What are the elements that we need to govern? I have talked about these systems, human behavior, mechanisms. I have talked about structures, policies and regulations, standards and law. But what are we regulating? What should we regulate? I think we need to regulate data. I think we need to regulate algorithms. I think we need to regulate computing. Universities of today must have access to high-performance computing. I think we need to regulate applications. that come out of this. Now, coming to the end of my talk, I read an insightful article in the New York Times, and I'm going to quote what it says. AI will force us humans to double down on those talents and skills that only humans possess. The most important thing about AI may be that it shows us what it can't do, and so reveals who we are and what we have to offer. And now I'm going to extend, and we teach those things that we have to offer. In conclusion, and answering the question of friend versus foe, I'm reminded of Charles Dickens when he explained the optimism and disappointment of the French Revolution in A Tale of Two Cities. And of course, I know we have a representative from the French embassy, and there is a valid criticism of Charles Dickens, especially his book on A Tale of Two Cities. They say he couldn't have written A Tale of Two Cities because he only lived in one, which was London. So I'm going to quote Dickens. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was a winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going directly to heaven. We were all going directly the other way. And of course, this is really what AI is all about. It is ushering the best of times, but at the same time, it is ushering the worst of times. The divides, the discriminations of AI system, generating fake information to disrupt people and society. Its positive impact as our friend on health, economy, and education is absolutely impressive. However, its negative elements as a foe, and I talked about fake news, militarization of AI, the undermining of human rights using AI, are causes for concern. We have to ensure that AI is used to maximize the good and minimize the bad. We need to develop all these values to be able to deal with this technology. We need to understand the aspects of AI that needs to be regulated. And of course, if we dare fail, and those who ignore AI, I think they shall fail. Universities that ignore AI or treat it as a technological subject, they are going to fail. And those who embrace it in all their disciplines are going to succeed. Thank you very much. Ndiyalibuwa, ngiyabonga, kiyalibuya. Bye, thank you.